Good morning, ladies. Thanks for joining us for another session of Build Your Craft and Career 2022. And I'm so excited to have a dear friend. She's hilarious, Ebony Looney, who's here. She's a website designer and an online marketing master. So Ebony, thanks so much for joining us. And we're going to kind of dive into how you help women-led construction firms basically put their best self forward.
Thank you for having me.
So you live in the South, but you work with people all over the country. Can you kind of tell me what brought you to web design? What brought you to, graphic development and creating brands? Like, how did you get into it, and what do you love about it?
Well, it's funny. The first time I learned anything about website coding, I was in high school in New York City, where I live. And back when you had to put letters and numbers on a black screen, right? It's not what it is today. And the first thing I created was a butterfly. Now, the school was fashion, right? So here's the correlation. The school was fashion industries, but they were showing us how to do code as part of the computer program. And I think that sparked in me like, wait a second, this is really cool. I can take these numbers and letters and make something really pretty. And I was in a fashion high school because I was learning merchandising. And I think that was the spark. Now, it wasn't until I was around 19, graduating high school, I was working for a company that did interior design, and they were starting up their own website to help interior design firms catalog all their samples, when they go in and do stuff for different companies, and they were building a website. And I was like, I want to learn how to do that. So that I would say that would be the second spark. And so I bought a book called HTML for Dummies because I didn't go to college for it. And I read the book. I read the book on how to do HTML. Well, it wasn't, fast forward to when I was around 23 years old, I actually got to put some of those things to application to use and practice at my job where I was working, which was an IT company. I got hired to do reception, and I was able to play with all the stuff that I learned from reading this book. And because they were kind of like, it was a big company, but they were a startup, the department operated like a startup. I was able to practice everything I learned from that book.
Nice.
Creating something from words and numbers to building websites. I'm telling you, this was a thing that the spark and how things progressed. And so I thought, after working at this company, it was an IT company, they saw me doing things, and they were like, wait a second, what are you doing over there? You can help out on our banking websites, and I was like, oh no, I'm just a receptionist, whatever. And they're like, no, my boss was like, no, you could do this because I see you over there. And next thing I know, I'm working on banking websites, doing code, and they would always ask me to do stuff like make it pretty, because I was a girl that, I like things to be pretty. So that's how I really got into it, getting paid for it, because it was my job. And back then, what we called the user experience.
Yes.
So then I was like, I'm gonna start a blog. I think my husband was like, no, you should start a blog. And so I did. And then my hairstylist said, can you do one for me? Can you do, you know what I mean? And so there's the beauty in the tech. So they want me to make it pretty. And then I knew the tech part. And then one day, after about, I guess, 4 years at that company, or 3 years at that company, I was like, I think I'm gonna start my own business. Like turn it into a business where I actually charge people. And that's where Make Me Over Ebb blossomed.
I love it. What's your favorite thing? Like, I love, for someone that does kitchens, I'm also very visual, right? Everything is like, I want to make it pretty, right? So I understand that, that drive. What's kind of your favorite thing about like working with a client though? Like, because there's lots of things you probably love, but like, what's kind of your favorite part of it?
I think, seeing them talk about their vision and they get so excited about it.
Yeah.
So I think that whole, that seeing them excited, I get excited. And then I'm like, oh my goodness, let's show this to the world. We got to show it to the world. And so I like their excitement when they're excited about what they're doing. I find that when the client is not excited, it's like, I want to say, so why are you doing this if you're not excited? You know what I mean? So the ones who are excited, I love working with people who are excited about their business and they want it to grow.
Right. Yeah. And I love that you have a focus, one of your niches is female-led construction companies, right? Or woodworking
Mhm.
or trades groups. I can see how you would like that because you kind of get to be, it's kind of like you're a part of those little companies yourself. And because you
Yeah,
like things that look physical, like
yeah,
visual, you get to see all the things they're doing, which is,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like I could see you liking that.
yeah,
And I could see you working for a lot of the listeners because they build beautiful things, right?
yeah.
Um, what are some of the mistakes that you see people do when they're trying to do, especially in the construction industry, right? Or where there's projects or things that they're trying to showcase? Like, what are some of the mistakes that you see that sometimes people just inadvertently do on their websites?
Um, well, without mentioning people I've worked with, but
Yeah, yeah,
one thing I notice is, um, unfortunately, they'll try to be like the other people. So this is something, and I think I've probably been guilty of this too. You'll look at another company who is successful in our eyes, maybe a big name industry in your area, and you'll say,
right.
I want my website just like that.
Yeah,
I want it just like that. And I'll look at it and I'll say, oh, but they're doing it all wrong.
yeah,
Like you know, like, oh no, but because of the perception of like they're big, you think I gotta do mine like theirs. So I
yeah.
think that's the one thing. So they don't lean into what makes them special.
Hmm.
So will wind up copying what the other company does,
Right.
your website, and then it's like, oh, this is not right. Like from a website standpoint, like this is not what we should be doing.
Hmm.
Even though they're doing it, they could have a crappy web designer, or they could just be behind the times. It happens, right?
Yeah.
Um, the other thing is, I think a lot of people use a lot of photos, which is great. You do need really good photos that capture the work and the projects and the bills that you're doing, but
Right.
they don't talk about the project.
Right. They don't tell a story.
They don't tell the story. And so I'll find that I'm turning into not just a designer, a developer, I am turning into a storyteller,
Yeah.
um,
Copywriter.
copywriter. Even my industry has changed. It's like, listen, the website is built. Now we need the words. And they're like, what? So
Yeah.
they're not telling the story behind the building, the project, what it took to get there. And it doesn't have to be long.
Yeah.
The other mistake I think they make is some people don't want to show their photo.
Hmm.
Especially, and I've seen this with African American women, they'll say, or teens, they'll say, well, we don't want to show our photo because we don't want anybody to see we're black. And I was like, what? Huh?
Yeah.
But they know it.
Yeah. And so you're not
They
connecting. Yeah. You're not connecting with the audience, right? You're not building
yeah,
trust
and
with
they're
them.
just like, well, we just want to make it about the work. And I get it. You don't want it, you're not trying to be an influencer, right?
Yeah.
And I get
Yeah.
it, but there's like a balance where I'm like, well, they need to see who you are. Cause I mean, everybody designs buildings. Everybody, if everybody's doing the same thing,
Right.
what
Yeah.
makes your company different? Maybe your company has a family history that's like, which I found out with one company I was working with. I was like, what? You guys are like third generation construction women?
Yeah.
Whoa,
Yeah. That's
like
an
we gotta
incredible
tell,
story. Yeah.
yeah, we gotta tell this story. And I'm just like, what? You've been doing construction since you were two,
Yeah.
like stuff like that.
That's awesome.
So
Well, I always like to say that, or and even remind myself, right, when I was selling that people hire people.
yeah,
The fact that you have a skill and that you know how to build a building or do whatever, but they really invest in people. Like that's just human to human. That's what we do. So if you don't share anything about yourself and connect, it's hard for people to feel like they know you, right? Or that they want to work with you, that they're going to enjoy the process. So,
yeah.
and so what would you say, like specifically for this summit, that would be maybe 1 to 3 tips that you could give of, if there's a young lady, maybe she just recently started her business, maybe she left working as an employee and she's going to start her own little construction business, maybe she's a wood turner or a furniture maker or something. What would be some tips that you would tell her that would be helpful when she's hiring a web designer, that she should really be thinking about and kind of guiding that experience?
I think the first thing is that I think you should be totally okay with talking about your business. I know it sounds silly, but
Yeah,
like what
comfortable.
because be comfortable because web designers, we're thinking in terms of like how it's gonna look, but
Yeah,
we can't really figure out how it's gonna look if we don't know anything about your business. So we can't read your mind. So really be okay with talking about your business. And if you're working with a designer who's worth their salt, because there's different levels of designer, interview them. You don't have to hire, I don't think you should hire the cheapest. I don't think you should hire the most expensive, but you need to ask them if they understand your industry. Right. And maybe if they don't hire them. Don't hire them, because don't hire them. So be okay with talking about your business, because they're going to need to know all the information. Interview the designer, and don't go with the cheapest option, which I think people make that mistake. They're cheap, I'm going to go with them. No. It's going to hurt you in the long run. And the third thing I think is, think about your website when you talk to the designer in terms of your whole marketing strategy. Okay, because what I'll see is people will say, think of like us in silos. They'll say, well, I'm gonna get a social media person, a website person, a YouTube person, a print material person, and we're all working in these silos. When if you're at a company and you had a marketing team, they were all kind of work together, because the messaging should really be consistent across the board.
Right.
So see, when you talk to them, you really need to make sure, see how your website fits into your whole marketing strategy, and it will just make your marketing efforts easier.
Yeah. What's sort of your process working with a client? Do you spend, kind of a lot of time up front trying to help them figure out what that strategy is and what they would like their messaging to be? Because I know a lot of women that are in the trades or that or have a small business, they're technically good at the thing they're doing, but they really don't know the messaging behind that, right? To attract the right clients. So do you help them with some of that, of like really kind of understanding how they want to present themselves to the world?
Yeah, we actually do. And as coming from a technical background too, it's like, I know my craft, right? But even I will talk to someone outside of me to help me with my strategy. Right.
Yeah.
Because you're so, like you said, you're so close to it that sometimes you're just like, I don't know what it is. Right. So that's what we find ourselves helping people do. Like with our process, we have a 3-step process where we review. If you already have a website, we review kind of what you have.
Right.
Kind of look at your messaging. Maybe your messaging is already there, just needs to be put in a different place. Then the second step is then we refresh. Then we do the refreshing second, and then the third step is we launch.
Yeah.
We launch it, but the first thing is that we have to figure out a strategy. But we got to review what you already have, because you may have a message that you didn't even realize. It's like right there for it.
Nice.
That you just naturally do, like who you naturally are. So like I do makeovers. So it's kind of like we make over websites. It's like Ebony is right there. It's right.
Yeah, I do love your tagline. I think it's super cute, right? Make me over, Eb. So that's sort of your specialty, is that you really like taking somebody that has maybe a little bit of a structure there, but then really like zhuzhing it up, like really making it shine.
Yeah, I like that. Zhuzhing it up and judging it, especially if they've already had a website. Usually people come to us and say, listen, I did my website myself, but I need you to fix it. You know what I mean? That's usually who I get most of the time. And so they're like, can you make it over? Because I'm the makeover girl, right? Could you make it over? And so, but even with the makeover, I'm like, okay, so where are we going with this? What do y'all want to happen? And it doesn't have to be complicated. And most people are like, oh, like one client I have, she says, I'm at a point in my business, we're getting bigger projects. Yeah. And we want to build a legacy, because I think she's going to pass it off to her kids. Yeah. And so she's thinking legacy. And I was like, oh, I need to put the website in a
bigger context. Yeah.
Bigger context. We're not just saying call us to like redo your roof. Yeah. I was like, ooh, we need story. She definitely needs more storytelling.
Yeah, I love that that's part of what you're doing, is helping, pull out these stories of these women, which, I know, if you have clients like that, so many of these women that listen to me and listen to the show and probably that have hired you, I mean, they're incredible. And yet very few people actually hear their real stories, right? Unless they're like on a podcast interview. So I love that you're helping them pull that out on the website and really make them shine. Because so many women, they're just like in the back, just doing their thing in the back, right? Quiet, right? Humble. But for the trades to change, we need to see more examples of women doing this stuff and thriving, right? To attract other young ladies to the field. Okay.
But I think that's why I was inspired hearing my client's story and then doing research on this industry I wanted to really get into. And I was like, wow, I could see myself I never thought I could do this, but you guys are inspiring me. Like, maybe this could be a second viable career. Like, I'm inspired.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I love it. Okay. So one of the questions I want to ask was, what are some of the ways that a good website can help you actually win bids for, win bids with customers? Like what is the strategy behind that instead of just a beautiful website? Like what would be the strategy to actually try to win bids, right?
So, from what I understand, you go into these meetings and you have to pitch your PDF. Most people have PDF slideshows depending on where you live, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And they have to pitch. Well, people, before you come in, they're gonna like look up your website to see where you are. Like, what are they actually doing? So on that home page, it needs to say exactly what you do, and it doesn't have to be fluff.
Yeah.
The amazing thing is, like, just say exactly what you do. We specialize in this for these people, right? So that's the main thing. They have to have that on the homepage because that's the most visited page there. Samples of their work. So it needs to be laid out logically. And you're thinking of like where the person is going to be on there, like what, 3 nowadays, maybe 3 seconds. They're going to glance at it.
Yep.
And it needs to answer their question quickly. So that first, we call it a hero image.
Yeah.
Who we are, what we do, with a magnificent photo, maybe of your best work.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily recommend stock photos.
Yeah.
Because it needs to show what you are doing, of who, of the building, Yeah. Now, if it's in context where you're showing the type of work, but just hire a photographer. So you need a professional photographer to get your own stock photos with your messaging at the top, and immediately how they can contact you and what you want them to contact you for first. So if you want to win a bid, why would they need to contact you? You can't win the bid without getting the first call.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we would
basically don't make it hard for them to know what to do. Right. Like,
so a lot of people will put the contact information at the bottom, but sometimes it's okay to kind of pull it up. We call that call to action buttons to say, click here to call us, or schedule contact, whatever you want to call your process is, schedule that with us so we can start the conversation. Things are changing. Before, you can just say, contact us, fill out the form. But I'm really pushing my clients to setting it up with a booking calendar, because you guys in the construction field, you're super busy. You're on site. So you're making it easy. So those are really, it sounds like simple changes, but those are like big to help you winning bids, to get them in your sales cycle, your funnel. Use your website as your portfolio. So if you have it in your slideshow that you're presenting in front of the team, have it on the website to match and keep all the branding consistent.
And I could see how having that call to action at the very top, that's really specific, when someone's when the momentum is up and they're kind of a little bit interested in you, you're just making it so easy for them psychologically to just finish that little task, versus like, well, I'll think about it. I'll review the rest of the website. Eventually I'll contact them. I'll do a very generic form, and it kind of loses its excitement, versus if they see something like, oh, I love this. Oh, I'm going to book a call right now. Right. I'm going to schedule.
Yeah. And the forms back in the day was fine. Like this, like 5 years ago, 3 years ago, you can have a form, everybody fill it out.
Yeah.
It was fine.
But now I think people just don't even want to do that.
They don't want to do that. No, I don't even want to do it. To book a call, let's schedule a call and get you on the schedule.
Yeah, right now. And then now I know that task is done, and I don't have to think about it till next week when I'm meeting with that person, right? Like, I know that's done. Yeah.
And it makes it easy if you have an assistant, because what you're doing, like in construction, you have a process of building a building, laying the foundation. You understand that process. You're building your own process within your building, in your business, to win the bid. The goal is to win the bid.
Yeah. Nice.
So that,
Good. Okay. And then what about SEO? I mean, I've done quite a bit with SEO myself, but what's your take on SEO, and does that work? And what do you think are the best strategies for that? And like, what's your take on SEO? And explain a little bit about SEO in case someone, I think
Oh,
everybody knows what it is, but just in case they don't know what it is.
okay, so SEO is search engine optimization, and is a lot of times it's one of those things that it's the nerdy talk thing that it's not the sexy thing to talk about, right?
Right.
But it's so important. Once the website looks good, you want to be able to attract people to it.
Right.
So with SEO, search engine optimization, that means that whoever is searching, the search engine, which is Google,
Yep.
or Bing or Yahoo, whatever you're searching from, my Firefox, whatever, if your website is optimized with words that people are searching for, then whatever those search engines are, they'll say, oh, ding, 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 let's send it to this website. They got all the words.
Yeah.
They got all the words, right? The beautiful thing is if you are able to answer questions that people, your clients or prospects have in a way that how they're searching, if your website can consistently answer those questions, then you're more likely to show up in the search engine. Now, how you do that is through blog posts. A lot of people don't like to do it because it's a lot of writing. Yeah. But it's a necessary thing to do. So we may not do that when we first make over the website because we need the website up structurally. That would be more like after we launch, part of marketing. Yeah. It's not part of the redesign, that's part of marketing, but it's so important. So if you can think of 10 questions that you're
frequently asked questions.
Frequently asked questions, and then you use them as you answer them in forms of blog posts. Yeah. And there's so many different methodologies out there on how to write a blog post or do a video. If you have a YouTube page and you say, I don't really want to do a blog post, I'll do a video and then let the transcript be your blog post. Yeah, because YouTube is a search engine owned by Google, and most people are asking questions and they'll show the answers first. So the reason why I'm saying this with the website is someone may say, well, in construction, well, what are people asking? It depends on what your clients are asking, and that takes a little bit of research and time. So if you're a roof builder, what are they asking? And the thing is, you can ask those questions or Google yourself. What people are asking about. Right. Yeah, what people, somebody else had probably answered those questions. So you can Google those questions and then you answer it in your own way and write that content or hire somebody to put that content on your website so that you are more likely to be found, and therefore your website is helping you it's helping you get found and get seen, especially if you're doing local SEO.
Yeah, that's what I was imagining specifically. If you're in Georgia or Arkansas or whatever, like you definitely want local SEO because most other places won't be doing that. And so you'll be the number one company that keeps showing up, right?
And I would say just 10 questions. So don't think like, oh my God, I gotta do, no. Just was 10 common questions that you can answer on your website or in a video in a way that other people are asking, common people. Right. When I say common, meaning not industry people, because in the industry we have our words.
Exactly.
No one is really, our clients are not really search engine optimization.
Right, exactly. For me it would be kitchen. It would be like, how do you plan a good island? What sink should I pick? What's the difference between granite and engineered stone? Are white cabinets still in style? Yes, they are, ladies. They always have been for 30 years. So like I would pick my top 10 questions and have those as blog posts. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so like for when I was researching podcasts, believe it or not, I put in top 10 female construction podcasts. And yours came up.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I'm surprised by that.
Let me tell you. So
that's Google, funny.
Like, you understand what I'm saying? Yours came up and I was like, oh, wow. So I didn't go to the second page. Yeah. I was and I was like, oh, and next thing I know, doing, so it's just the same thing like that with your business. So SEO is very, very important.
Yeah.
You don't
Nice.
have to, you don't have to do it by yourself. Get someone who is an
Yeah.
expert, but don't, just be careful how much you pay them. That's the only
Well,
thing I'll say, because there's
that's
some.
what I was going to say is so if some of our listeners though wanted a little bit of help with you strategy, you could help them with that a little bit, right? You could help them
Yes,
a little bit, like get the basics started because you understand and you might be able to, brainstorm a little bit with them so that at least they can get those top 10 questions up. You would be able to help
yeah,
our listeners, right? With that.
I would be able to help them. Now, I will say this: if your listeners are WordPress users, because I
Yes.
primarily build WordPress websites, WordPress has amazing SEO
Right.
tools that you can do on your own. Like, I like personally Yoast, not an
Yeah.
affiliate with them, but I use them, YOAST. They will have like a guide that you can put into your website and do a SEO check and make suggestions.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's like, oh, this is just, make suggestions that you didn't even think about.
Right.
Or a
Yeah.
company like Uber suggests, you can put in construction or your topics, and they'll give you a list of questions that maybe you didn't think about. And it was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I can write on that,
Nice.
So.
Well, maybe what we'll do is maybe in fall, maybe we can do another little fun workshop, you and me, and we can help some of
Yeah.
these women. We can brainstorm and do a Zoom room and maybe brainstorm some of their strategy for their websites and what they're doing. Or I think that would be really fun to do. And no one else is doing that, right?
Yeah, I think, honestly, we didn't talk about this before. What Making Over Ebb used to be a blog.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I build my authority, by talking about things and people searching. So this was before SEO was cool. Like,
Yeah,
we didn't really
exactly.
call it SEO back then, right?
Yeah,
We
you
were
did
just
it the
like,
old school way, literally.
yeah, I was like, I'm just gonna write my stuff. And
Yeah.
now it's like it's structured into SEO, and it's like, oh, that's what we're calling this. Okay, so, but it works. It really, we could do a whole podcast only on SEO.
Yeah. Okay.
It's
Well,
quite
we'll schedule
fascinating.
that. Yeah, we'll schedule that after the summit, and maybe we'll do another like workshop. That's part of what I wanted to start doing with the website, or sorry, doing with the podcast is like that's why we're doing that live event on the 17th, because I want to start mixing it up a little bit and doing some kind of fun, different things with, associated with the podcast. And I think a workshop around that would be really fun,
I think so too.
Okay, so my last question is, how can you attract subcontractors? Which I like this one of your suggestions, your topics is like, I don't think we think enough about hiring subcontractors as a contractor and attracting them. So what's your strategy of that you help your clients with, of attracting kind of the best people they want to work with in collaboration? How does the website do that?
Okay, so I have to be honest with you. I did not come up with that on my own, right?
Okay.
It was through working, and I think this was going back to the other question, what I like about working with clients, right? Sometimes you learn something new and you're like, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
we discovered something, right? So client wants to bring in subcontractors so they can work on these huge bids. And so she said, well, Ebony, how do we do that on the website? And as I'm talking to her, basically a subcontractor is like, they're working for you, sort of. It's not really an employee.
Yeah.
But they need to be they're going to go to the website too.
Yeah.
Right. So your website is industry specific. So you're going to only to get the right contractors, you want to make sure also your information speaks to them.
Right.
Right. So maybe you have a criteria of the type of subcontractors you want. And so when you're putting your portfolio up there, you're saying, well, okay, if you like to work on this job, click here to apply.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. So there's the booking call. So you have the booking call for the people you want, but for the subcontractors, they actually have to fill out an application. So I was like, oh, so really this is just like a job application. And she says, yeah, but they're not really working as and I'm like, but in my head, I'm trying to think of the tool.
Yeah.
Have an application with the criteria that you want. They have to fill it out, which is apply. It goes to whoever, it goes to the company,
right?
The owner or whoever they have in charge of that. They can review it and then send them off an email.
Right.
They can be on their email list, right? So you can have a separate email list only for your subcontractors, where you constantly send them information about jobs,
another project that's coming up, or electrician over here. Yeah.
So you're like your own, like LinkedIn does, right?
Yeah,
Or
you're like
job,
your own little agency,
your
basically.
own agency. And so they're looking to you. And the other thing was they have this thing I heard called plan rooms. You've heard of that, right? The plan
No.
rooms. Yeah, so there's this thing where plan rooms where the contractors will put all their current jobs that they want
Oh, right.
subcontractors to look at. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, this is amazing. I just need to
Yeah.
put the technology pieces
Right.
together to make
Yeah.
it simple. So it can't be complicated, right?
Yeah.
Fill out a form. If we approve you, you will get a link and the password to the plan room. So
Yep.
you're putting them into your process again and
Yeah.
basically creating your own
Yeah.
job portal. So, and you're weeding out the people you don't want, you don't want to work with, or may not be a good fit.
Yeah, yeah.
So
No, I
then
think
you're
this is a really great idea that I think, and maybe some of the ladies are already doing this, but when I was doing work, well, none of that technology was around when I was running my company. But I just most people in the construction industry are finding it through referrals. You're working on a job site, you see a guy, you really like what he's doing, you say, hey, get your card, I'll use you on the next project, whatever, or someone gets sent to you. But I like this idea because I think a lot of the women who are especially some of the other panelists I can even think of, and the women that listen, they are hiring a lot of people all the time. And I like this new, better way of like filtering people. And I could see how I'm thinking of like a few women right now that go to a lot of networking events. They're very active in their business communities. You could easily be when you're at a cocktail party or whatever, and you meet someone, say, hey, I'd love it if you would apply to be one of our electrician, or this or that. And I like that because it's really different than just around, the local, if you're at Lowe's and you run into somebody. So I think this is a very good strategy that I'm going to specifically, I have a few women already that I'm going to tell about this. Maybe they're already doing it, but if not, I think this is a really great idea.
Well, and here's the other thing, you're building up your database of people that you can count on, they're reliable. And it doesn't matter what, there's different, they call them CRM tools or client or customer management tools that you can use for your database. It doesn't matter. You just need them in a place digitally that your assistant can go to and say, oh, they are skilled at this. These are their certifications.
You can tag them.
Yeah, to tag them. They can go and update if you want to get fancy. But if you just want something simple, here's your list. This is what they do. We have this job.
Yeah, but it's basically it's a better digital, more streamlined approach than a stack of business cards in your truck, right? Which is what we used to do, right?
And as these women are building their businesses, you and I both know, if you have more than, I'm going to say 2 or 3 clients, you can get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So, or at least I do, maybe it's me, but it's like, if I have it in a little database, it's like, okay.
Yeah. And you have projects, we're bidding projects well in advance. So, you have a need for this, or this guy just retired and you need to fill this hole with this, or like it would make it a lot easier to be, I don't know, just less stressed out, because you're right. You always have other people you can go to. And I think it's a brilliant idea. I think it's great. So I'm glad you brought it up, whether it was your idea or not. I'm glad you remembered it and brought it up.
Yeah, when I saw it, I was like, oh, this is a really cool thing. But so in this industry, they call them like subcontractors, whereas another industry may call it like employee job portal. You know what I mean? But this is essentially what you're doing.
Right, exactly. Okay, well, this has been lovely, and I'm excited to send some women your way. And I love that you specialize in this, so you really haven't, you just have an understanding of the construction industry, and you've had a lot of clients that have already done this, so you kind of, you know what you're looking for when you're pulling those stories out, how to really make these women shine. And I know that you have obviously, you said your essential website refresh package. So any of the ladies that are listening, right, they can contact you and maybe sign up for that. And I'm just so thrilled that you spent some time with us and kind of shared that there's a woman who literally is specializing in female-led construction company website development. I mean, I love that. I think it's fabulous.
Yeah, I think it's great that there's a lot of ladies doing construction.
There's so many.
It's so many.
Yes.
I was like, wow, legacy, like
Yeah,
legacy. And I think it's kind of cool. I'm like, yeah.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you so much for your time, hon. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Camille. I appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to the summit too.